Welcome to this Grizzly coffee table build, and if you haven't already, please be sure to check out the link in the description below for a free set of plans for this one. Now while you're down there, please hit that subscribe button for more videos like this from Grizzly, and we'll jump right into it. In this video, I'll be walking you step by step through making this simple yet elegant coffee table using primarily benchtop machines. So hopefully it'll help anyone out there who is looking to see what is possible with a few portable machines in a fairly small space. As you watch the basic leg dimensioning in action, I want to mention that this build is a great representation of using and maximizing material you have on hand, because it's a great challenge to make the most of quality material. I measured down the height of the apron piece and make a mark. Then I measured the full length of the leg. Measure in 2 1/4 inches at the top and 1 1/4 inches at the bottom and connect the marks. On the bandsaw, steer wide of your layout because we'll be trimming right up to it in a moment. Then it's onto the miter saw where I trim each leg to length in silky slow motion. So you've been watching as each one of these legs has been rough cut to this size. Now I want to get it down to 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 inches on the top side. So I'm going to do that on the table saw and then final pass with the planer to get things nice and square. Then it's on to the taper jig. As you watch this video, you might see that there's some inclusions and strange little knots, and I've kept the knots into this and kind of worked them into the design because it makes the most of the material and I think it really highlights it. Things are looking really good, nice and square, 2 1/4 inches on the end, and now it's time to taper. Well, clean up this taper. So let me walk you through the basic components of the sled that we're going to assemble for these legs. It starts with the sled itself, which in this case is a 10-inch wide piece of just scrap plywood we had around, and it's 24 inches long. I've also cut some 3/4 inch pieces of ply into about 2.5 inch wide pieces. As long as I have good straight edges, I'm good to go. Now I have 3 of those because of the thickness of my material. I need it built up close to the same height. You'll also have a makeshift fence material. So this is actually out of poplar, and I have 3 pieces of that as well. The bottom end of my leg needs to be 1 1/4 inches, so I'm gonna measure in 1 1/4 here. At the top end, when we cut this square, I knew that this was gonna be run long, so I want my 3-inch apron to be marked out. So I measured down from the top of the leg, 3 inches. Take a little machinist square, measure down. So I'm gonna rest down here. I'm also gonna mark right on the edge here, and that's where I'm gonna be. Now we'll score a line. Use a pencil. There you go. Now we'll set our new fence. The assembly of this is pretty straightforward, and I'm not using glue in this instance because I want to actually be able to change the angle of the leg for future use. So you could glue it down if you knew this leg size was what you wanted for future builds. To secure it, I'm using 1 1/4 inch screws and also 3-inch screws to go all the way down to the sled itself. Safety first. Voila. So this is a simple taper jig for table legs on your table saw. Now it's important before going any further to reference the leg for this table because they do have a double taper design. This leaves the outside corner square, which you'll see here in a moment, and it's a good idea to even mark the 90-degree corner as well for easy reference. Because the taper jig is 10 inches wide, we want to set the fence to that number. Secure the workpiece with the toggle clamps and always have the 90-degree corner that you marked tucked firmly into the corner of the jig fence. Using a scrap piece of material to act as a shim, use the toggle clamp and then again, make sure that the square corner remains in the corner of the taper jig. There you go. A little bit of sanding and we have a double tapered leg. Perfect, ready to go. I'm milling the apron material from rough cut walnuts, so I use an oversized template to gauge where I want to cut. Now this template is just a guide, so I'm not too worried about sticking to it perfectly. It's time to start cutting, so I get out my Grizzly Pro jigsaw and get things rolling. The bandsaw makes quick work of setting a decent straight edge for the joiner to clean up. A few passes on the joiner and we're back to the bandsaw with the fence set up to get a little closer to size. Again, don't worry, the marks are way oversized. And we'll work that material down further using the joiner for a square edge and face, and then onto the planer for squaring the opposite face. Rip the apron pieces to final dimension using the table saw. Then cut them to length on the miter saw. We are back at the bench, and now it's time to utter that one word that we've all been waiting for: joinery. And for this, we'll be using the Grizzly Pro dual spindle dowel joiner with 8mm bits. There is one more step to complete with the apron components, but we're gonna get to that in a little bit because it's easier on this next step for doing the dowels when everything is square and perfect. For the leg dowels, I have drawn a reference mark on the clear guide screen to line up to the top edge of my leg. This ensures that I have an accurate dowel position on each leg that will reference perfectly with the dowel holes that I make in the apron pieces. The dowel joiner did a great job of creating the holes needed to assemble this. So everything is dry fit and looking really good and nice and tight. I have the band clamp on it holding it all together, and as you can see, it's a little bit blocky. So we're gonna refine that by adding an arch to the apron and also, well, cleaning up the top. Before I disassemble everything from the dry fit, I wanna discuss how we'll actually connect the top to this lower section. And that will be done with these small clips. These little figure 8 style clips have a countersunk hole on each side, and you use a Forstner bit to create the hole to recess it down so that it's flat to the top of the actual table, or at least the table base. Now it's really important right now to do this while the pieces are still square and uniform, because we're going to add an arch to each one of the aprons. It's really important to go over to the drill press or use your hand drill with the proper size Forstner bit to recess them now, because it just makes life a lot easier. Next, let's make an arch. To do this, we want to mark the center of our apron pieces, then draw a line. On a piece of scrap material that is longer than your workpiece, find the dead center as well and mark that. Use a long clamp and carefully apply pressure on each end. Just remember to wear eye protection and face it away from you, just in case. Get a basic bend in the material, then place the clamp piece on top and adjust until you get the arch just the right shape. Now line up those center points and you should be good to go. Remember, this is not a perfect way to make an arch since it's dependent on the material being clamped, but it certainly does the trick. Remove the waste on the bandsaw, then use the first cut as a template for the second. So our larger arches are looking really good. Everything lines up nice. Now it's on to these little guys. So to do that is a little bit different, because if you just took this arch and placed it on top of the side, well, you don't get much of an arch. What we want to do is more or less take this size as close as possible, so 1 3/4 inch, and transfer that down here. And we're just going to find a piece to actually cheat that radius. Everything is looking really good. The apron components have a nice big curve to them, and that is very cool. So the next step for these is going to be sanding. I could use one of these cleaned up as a template for the other to use something like a flush cut router bit, but I'm actually just going to go ahead and, since they're so close, clamp them together and sand. But that's a tomorrow task. Today, I'm going to finish off with the tabletop itself. We're going to get that cut to size and hopefully some bevels put on. I used the Grizzly Pro circular saw to cross cut the slab in 3 passes, and I used a scrap piece of plywood as a guide fence. Then I went to the table saw to rip the pieces to width. The final crosscut was done using the circular saw again, and using the square edges, I marked reference points for the cut line and the plywood fence location. There is one additional step which you'll notice I have added in the future steps, and that is a 35-degree bevel to the bottom of the slab top. This helps lighten the overall look, and it was achieved by using the circular saw on the end grain cuts and the table saw on the long edges. Time for some sanding. And for the sake of time and your viewing sanity, I'll simply tell you that I stepped through the grits from 100 grit to 320 grit on this project to prepare each and every component for finish. The arched aprons were clamped together and sanded in unison. But just be aware that sanding radius surfaces with an orbital sander can lead to a heavier wear on the sander pad and the hook and loop material. At this stage in the process, I always try to use a drop blanket as a soft space for the workpieces to contact to avoid damaging the surfaces. Each corner was also rounded over by hand for a nice feel. Assembly is quick and easy with dowels and a solid amount of glue and a band clamp, and it's mocked up. I did opt to swap out the band clamp for the heavy-duty parallel clamps once the base was flipped over though, because who doesn't love the incredible force of using something like parallel clamps? With such good clamping pressure, you inevitably get squeezed out, so having a damp rag on hand to wipe away the excess is a must. And it'll save you some potential sanding and finishing headaches in the future. The table base is unclamped and looking really good. Now, there are going to be spots here where when you use the water to actually wipe some of the glue away, that you might end up raising the grain. So you want to go back and touch that up with some 320 grit, and then you're ready for finish. Finish for this one is right out of our Founder's Playbook, and that is a natural tung oil finish that is hand applied. This finish is applied on every component and left to absorb. Then the excess is wiped away with a clean rag. After the finish is wiped away, it's allowed to set for 3 to 4 hours, then lightly sanded with a high grit sandpaper and wiped down again. Another coat is applied and the excess is again wiped away. Let it set overnight so it can cure, and then reapply and finish again until you have 5 to 6 coats. Once the finish is set, you can buff in a paste wax for an ultra soft feel. The last step is to connect the table base with the top, using the little figure 8 clips that we covered earlier. Then, sit back and enjoy your new coffee table in all its glory. Thanks for coming along as we built this sleek little coffee table, and we would love to see and share your twist on this design on our social media feeds, which are linked below. And be sure to visit grizzly.com for all of your machinery and accessory needs. Grizzly, quality machines at great prices.